Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Almighty God be upon you. Assalamu alaikum, dear believers. I just wanted to come to you to talk to you about a few things during the month of Ramadan as we begin this 10 days of Ramadan, inshallah. Again, we're focusing on achieving Allah's mercy. And we know that during this time period, when we're trying to achieve Allah's mercy, we're going to be attacked by many things that take us off of our Sirat al-Mustaqim. And sometimes we realize that during the month of Ramadan, Satan, of course, is chained up. But we realize that although Satan is chained up, a lot of times we don't realize how long the chain might be. We still seem to be accosted by the whisperer. We know that Imam Muhammad has told us that we shouldn't get caught up in looking for Satan as being a physical thing, but look at Satan as being more of a whisperer, more of an influencer, one who's influenced. And we have to realize that although Satan is chained up, he's no longer able to influence us at this time. Some of his old influences have stuck to us, and we need to use Ramadan as a way to purify it. So during this month of Ramadan, we hope that Satan, of course, continues to be chained, but the influences that he has impacted us with in our past history, in our past moments, in our past periods of argument with other people, those touches of his whispering is able to vanish. And remember that, especially because we realize and understand that there are four enemies really to man. And those four enemies, as we mentioned, first of all, is Satan. But realize that also love for the dunya, our nafs, and our desires can also be detriments to us as human beings, how they can attack us even though Satan, of course, is chained up. Quite often when we look at the love for the dunya, we quite often get to the point where we want to make the material things of the world more important to us than the spiritual life that we need to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to be careful of our love for the dunya. We have to understand that Allah says that we have to really be balancing it. He tells us to strive for the hereafter, but don't forget our share of this world. Don't forget our share of this world. Don't forget our share of the dunya. So of course, the dunya, we should engage in it. We should become prosperous. We should engage in business. We should engage in other things that lead us to success. But at the same time, we can't engage in those things to the point that it's going to cause us to despair or cause us to go wrong. We have to have the balance in that. The other enemy, of course, of mankind, besides just the love for the dunya, is, of course, the problems that we have with our desires, where Allah tells us, or the Prophet has told us, that we have to be Muslim. In order to be Muslim, we have to like the things that Allah like and dislike the things that Allah doesn't like. And these things that hawa is really connected to our desires. We have to be careful that the things that we desire are the things that Allah wants for us. Quite often we want things yesterday when we really shouldn't have them until tomorrow. We let our desires get in the way where we start wanting so many different things, when really we shouldn't have those things until Allah wants us to have it. A lot of times we have to realize that Allah knows best. And because Allah knows best, we may not have something because we know that if Allah had blessed us with having it now, we may not do the things that we're supposed to do. If Allah had blessed us with a big fancy car, maybe we would make that car so fancy that we wouldn't let believers drive in the car to come to Jummah or to come to the masjid. We wouldn't allow that car to be able to meet the needs of the community. That's a desire or thing that we may have that may take us astray. The other thing, of course, we realize that's the enemy to man, besides Satan, besides our desires, and besides our love for the dunya, is also the problem that we have with our nafs. Realize that nafs could be nafs amara, nafs lawama, or nafs mu'mina. Again, we have to find a way to be balanced, even in having these nafs and these nafs being incorporated in our lives. Because often people tell us all the time that we have to just get rid of our nafs, get rid of them, and so that we can only have nafs mutmainah. But we realize that these other nafs, the nafs that commands, is the same nafs or the same spirit that could be engaged in us to tell us to get up and go pray. This particular nafs can be calling us or commanding us to go out and get a job, to get up and fast in the month of Ramadan, get up for suhoor. That nafs could be doing that too. But at the same time, Allah tells us that if this nafs, amara, isn't controlled, isn't put in balance the way that it should, it could easily lead us to being those who go astray. So then we see that we have to then become self-actualized, or nafs actualization. We create a balance in between understanding these particular nafs. Then, of course, nafs mutmainah is a nafs that, of course, we want to get or finally become part of. But this nafs that connects to the soul of happiness, of peace, of goodness, can also be a nafs that we could get extreme into. We could want to become a monk that learns so much about Islam that all day long we want to pray. All day long we want to do all these things so that we don't have time to be able to go out and work. We don't have time to be able to do those other things. So, the enemies to mankind, of course, during the month of Ramadan, Satan is, of course, locked up. He's chained, but his influences may still be sticking to us because we have that impressionable nature, being individuals who have been created from clay. We have to also remember during this time period of Ramadan that we have to also do not fall in love with the dunya. Seek a balance in those particular things. Guard our nafs during this period of Ramadan. And of course, check our hawa, check our desires. Love the things that Allah loves and hate the things that Allah dislikes. So we pray that your Ramadan is going well. We pray that this first 10 days to achieve Allah's mercy will be successful for you. And we greet you as we greeted you earlier in the Quranic expression of peace from Muhammad Islamic Center of Greater Hartford. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.